Well, speaking of ceilings, Shroud had some comments recently about Valorant having a lower skill ceiling than CSGO. We're going to talk about this topic at length to close the show, but to catch everybody up, here are Shroud's comments about the subject.
The thing is, this game is the skill ceiling and the potential is a lot lower than a game like Counter-Strike, right? So AZK, Brax, Skadoodle, right? Legends. Insane. But they're capped. They're capped, right? So everybody else is going to be on their level. And they're going to have to use their brain to figure out how to beat them. Because there's a cap, right? In Counter-Strike, it's not so much like that. The cap, there's a cap, of course, but the cap is so high up there that sometimes you don't even need a brain. You could just be fucking insane. Doesn't work like that in this game. Why do you think the cap's lower on this game? Just to make it easier for people to play. This game is trying to reach people that don't play FPS. A lot of people that have been playing Valorant never touched a first-person shooter in their lives, but Valorant allows them to. So it's not as punishing, right?
Counter-Strike is more about everybody having the same utility at their disposal. You have to decide what utility you want to buy, but for the most part, it's pretty much, two flashes of smoke and a Molotov. Strategy, I mean, maps in Counter-Strike have been out forever. People have been playing. I've been playing Dust 2 since before probably people have been born watching this interview. Dust 1 has been around since the early 2000s. So, as far as mechanical skills go, I think that Counter-Strike does have a higher ceiling as far as being like your individual clicking mouse, getting headshots, having good peaks, having good movement. Like I think Counter-Strike does have a higher skill ceiling with that regard. But I think Valorant is different in the sense that there's so much more thinking you have to do. There's so much more strategy you have to actually think about. Think about like a team running a Brimstone compared to a team running a Viper, or a team, choosing to not run a Cypher, but instead run, Reyna or Raze, whoever it might be. I actually think that in the long term, we will see some really insane tactical strategy from Valorant. I think it'll be even more creative than Counter-Strike is, just because it's a new game and just because there's so many abilities and there's so many weird synergies that people don't even realize, and even the pros don't even realize yet.
In this game, when you're playing a certain agent, you're separated entirely by whoever you're playing. Like if you're playing a Sova, he's capable of getting free info. His ultimate, goes through the entire map. Like I just feel like Counter-Strike definitely is tougher to play for sure, and it's just a little. It's kind of like Valorant. There's just a lot to it, honestly, and it's just a little. It's not as simple.
All right, so those are comments from some pros as well, responding to Shroud's comments. Jacob, agree or disagree?
I disagree with Shroud, right? Like, I think, first of all, like, of all the Counter-Strike players playing, like, I think he's not one of the best. Who's played some Valorant over time. Like, I've not been impressed by his performances more generally. So, like, how are you talking like that when we don't even know the ceiling of Valorant? I think he's making premature assumptions. Would be my general take, is that, like, we haven't seen enough high-level Valorant play to understand the ceiling. We've seen a lot of high-level Counter-Strike play over the past 20 years, and for the past 8 in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. To Skadoodle's point, what he just said, was that there are different types of ceiling in Valorant than Counter-Strike. The abilities, everything else, how you use them. So it's very different. I think that a lot of people make comparisons, which they're apt, but in some ways they are not.
Yeah, I'm going off Jacob. I do agree to accept. First of all, I want to say that Shroud does like Valorant. Like, this isn't a Dr. Disrespect situation where the doc literally just went off about how much he hates Valorant because he can't aim and he likes the running gun shooters, and it was a game that was not for him. Like, Shroud, this is probably the number one game Shroud plays on stream most days. Like, most of his YouTube videos are about Valorant. He enjoys the game. But I do think his thing is that he plays Valorant in the eyes of a Counter-Strike player, right? And he's thinking about it only as a Counter-Strike to a 1-to-1 to Counter-Strike. And if you look at just the game, the gunplay, yes, I think it's dumbed down. I do think that it's easier to, aim and to get kills in Valorant compared to CSGO when you look at just the gunplay itself. But when you look at the entire world, the gunplay is just the foundation of Valorant. The Valorant core is all these abilities and these setups and having to deal with 20,000 different things going on at once. And I think the difference in the skill ceiling is in Counter-Strike, and I believe Hiko said this yesterday in our interview, is that a lot of players can just rely on pure raw talent, right? You can just listen to your IGL and you can just mow people down. No, you don't have to think about anything. All you think about is aiming, clicking heads, that's all. In Valorant, you can't do that because you have your own specific abilities that you have to do on your own, and there's 20,000 things going on at once. So an IGL, one voice, can't pick up everything. You have to have your own sense of split decision making. So I do think there's a difference when it comes to ceiling. I do think the ceiling in terms of split-second decision-making is higher in Valorant compared to CSGO. And I do think when it comes to just pure mechanics, pure gunplay, it's higher in CS. So both games have really high ceilings just in different, categories.
Emily, if I can just interject for 1 second here. There's one comment in chat that I want to comment on. The Juke Sidewalker says the skill floor is lower. I can definitely attest to that. I am not good at FPS games, but I have a great time playing Valorant. Yeah. And I feel at times I'm actually contributing to my team.
Completely agree, actually. I think the abilities do two things. I actually really agree with what Tyler just said. So that's pretty much in line with what my opinion is. I think you're talking about different things when you talk about what the mechanical skill of Counter-Strike and also what abilities do to Valorant as a game in making it different than Counter-Strike. In regards to the skill floor, though, I think that is what abilities also do, right? Because I think to tie both of Jacob and Tyler's points, I don't think we've seen what good Valorant is, to be quite honest. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we'll see what good Valorant is until maybe something approaching the end of our first competitive season. But even then, we've all watched the Season 1 League of Legends World Championship, and that was not a good representation of what League of Legends could be whatsoever. So I think that we're still not going to see what quote-unquote good Valorant is for a while, although it'll be fun to watch the people learn what the game is. Abilities give it a really accessible skill floor because you can still kill someone with abilities. You can still contribute to your team with abilities and not feel terrible regardless of what your KDA is. Whereas I don't think you have that same entry level feel to CS. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just saying it is. It exists. It's a thing that exists. And I think that could also contribute to people's perception of Valorant being an easier game. But to tie everything together, to Jacob's point, we've seen so many years of CS. CS is a historic, iconic game that is honestly, I don't think going to be surpassed by anything. So it's always going to be its own thing. And the majors are always going to be massively well attended and well watched. So I think comparing Valorant in that regard is very difficult and a specious comparison due to the history. But that skill floor point is actually really, really prescient to how people talk about Valorant specifically.
That's intentional, right? I find... I think
for sure it's intentional.
Look at Dota and League. It's the same thing.
And League and Heroes of the Storm. Heroes of the Storm is super accessible and but at its highest level is really difficult. But League is more accessible than Dota was, right? I think most people, if you threw somebody in front of a computer with no MOBA experience and go figure this out, League is easier to get into, but both are incredibly mechanically difficult at the highest level, right? So so I agree. I think it is easier to get into Valorant, and I think that's intentional because Riot doesn't want to make it feel like they're boxing people out. They want one of the things they've done well. And I'm not a homer here. I host a Counter-Strike show. I am as high on Counter-Strike as anybody else. But one thing that they've done well that Valve hasn't is they've made it easier for people who have never played a tactical FPS in their entire life to play this game and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. That's something they've done well. Mm-hmm.
CS is very different. I mean, I can speak to that point because before Valorant came out, I wanted to play some FPS games. I was like, I'm gonna play Counter-Strike because the gunplay is, supposedly very similar to Valorant. So I think I played every night for about a month going into Valorant. I played for a few hours every night, and I got better. But the thing was, it was terrible. I mean, Valorant's toxic. But CSGO at the very floor level, when you're playing and the mics are on and you're not doing very well, it is god-awful. It is not fun. The barrier of entry in CSGO is incredibly low. Like, that's the reason why you don't see many, rising stars make it into the tier 1 scene unless you're, a Zywoo who can just break all barriers because you're that dang good. It's because these people have been playing 10,000 hours, 20,000 hours, 30,000 hours of this game, and they know every single point on every single map and know every single hold. And if you don't know any of that going into it, you're screwed. So I do think the barrier of entry was a big thing Riot wanted to take care of, where it didn't feel that steep. And we'll see as it goes along, right? Now, 5 years from now, when Valorant players have been playing for 10, 20, 30 hours like CSGO, the barrier of entry might not be as fun comparatively, but I think right now, like, to Arda's point, like, last night, he popped off in the game, and he felt like a god. You're like 22 and 15 on Brimstone. Yeah. You were carrying, getting multi-kill after multi-kill, and you felt good. Like, it was like, that was like your pop-off moment. You felt like simple. You felt like, a Zywoo in that moment, and I don't feel like you can get that.
Not felt like, Tyler, was.
You were.
Yeah. We did win that game. Actually, the best part of that was when Arda actually disconnected during the game for 2 rounds, and they couldn't find him during his disconnect, and he clutched by himself AFK. So that was a true golden god moment.
You were so nervous to plant, that I won the round even AFK. That's just god tier stuff. Let's end on this then. And when I ask this question, I'm not talking about observer mode. I'm not talking about the pros that are going to come to the game or are in the game or any of that speculation. I am purely talking about the gameplay. I'm talking about the skill ceiling. I'm talking about the game as it is constructed. Purely from that angle, can this remain and be a tier 1 esport?
I'll start. Yes, of course it can. If you look at Hiko literally had 35,000 people watching his stream. Hiko has grown so much in the last week or two. He continues to grow, and there's no drops. There's no reason people should be watching him unless they like Valorant. And Valorant, the Twitch Rivals event did get viewers. It's not, 1 million views. It's not the 1.7 million viewers they got for the closed beta drop, but there is a definite fan base there where Valorant has been in the top 5 Twitch game since its launch. Like, people do like to watch it, but I know you don't bring up the spectator mode, but right now I can't even compare it to any other esport because the spectator mode is so trash that it would just not even be worth comparing it to a CSGO or Dota or even like a Rocket League. It's embarrassing comparing the two because the spectator mode is really bad. I've said this many times. The developers know this. They tell me to tell them it's bad until they fix it, so I'm going to continue doing that. Your spectator mode is trash, Riot. It's very bad. No one wants to watch, Valorant esports through the spectator mode. They're gonna watch through Brax. They're gonna watch through Myth. They're all gonna hop on Hiko stream and watch him stream because the spectator mode is really bad. Because even the small details of when a player gets eliminated, the face doesn't disappear. They put a red X on it, which is very difficult to look at when you do a slight glance. It's so terrible. The spectator mode is so bad. So please. It has the potential to be a tier 1 esport. I think it has the chance to be a really, really fun esport, and we've seen this with all the clutch plays. You saw the Brax play that I posted on Twitter that got over 100,000 views. So there is a market to watch these plays. There's a market for esports, but until that spectator mode is fixed, or even gone from trash to even mediocre, I can't even talk about them as a tier 1 esport.
For me, I think it's going to depend on China. But, in terms of, tier 1 esport, are you talking, continuous investment despite the fact that it's not putting up the same numbers as, League of Legends or CSGO majors? Then, yes, I think Valorant can definitely achieve that, especially if it's an open circuit as opposed to, more separate regional, league play. I do also think it's really going to depend on the Chinese launch, which by all accounts is looking like it's going to be good. It looks like Riot is going to be communicating with Chinese orgs as soon as they can get the game released in China. I think a lot of Chinese orgs are going to be super, super happy about it. They already have teams, so that's already looking really, really good over there. But that's going to make a huge difference for me in terms of discerning whether it's like a tier 1, like top esport in terms of players and viewership.
Yeah, I agree mostly. I agree mostly with Tyler. Like it's got the potential to be there, but it's gonna take like Riot can't just coast because League of Legends has been so successful. They have to put equal amounts of hard work into it. And they have an opportunity to sort of mold from the beginning here, which in League of Legends they didn't really know what they were doing. So they really need to kind of buckle down and put pedal to the metal, in my opinion. But it does have the potential. I think it needs a lot of changes to be able to get there.